Hi, and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 294, and today's date is February 19th, 2014. And the title of this episode is, The Fed Says It Would Take Something Big to Stop the Taper. Before I get started, I just want to thank those people who donated to the X22report.com site. I really appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. Let's get right into the economic collapse news. We're going to head out to the UK, and we understand that things are not going well in the Eurozone, in the UK. Things are just getting worse. The debt's getting higher. Unemployment's getting higher. Well, in the UK, official figures have shown that Britain's unemployment rate rose unexpectedly in the fourth quarter of last year, indicating a gloomy outlook for the country's employment. Their unemployment increased to 7.2%, and right now, there are around 2.3 million Britons that do not have work at this time. And we're seeing this happen all over. And you can actually compare this to 1929, before the stock market crash. Europe was in the same type of position. Unemployment was skyrocketing. Most of the nations were in a recession/depression. And of course, the United States, the stock market was doing well. It was all pumped up, and everything seemed to be fine. But if you looked at the real economy, things were completely falling apart, and the stock market is the last indicator that things have really completely collapsed. And right now we're seeing the same exact thing. We're seeing Europe in a recession/depression. We have double-digit unemployment in Greece, Cyprus, Spain, Portugal, France, the whole Eurozone. Their unemployment is around 12.2% and moving up. We see the UK unemployment is increasing, and this is just showing us that things around the area are not going well. And this is why the Ukraine, when they looked at the Eurozone, they said, well, wait a minute. The Eurozone, most of the countries are in massive debt. They have austerity going on, and unemployment is between 12 and 30-something%. Why would we want to join the Eurozone? And this is why they decided to go with Russia. And of course, as soon as that happened, we saw riots and protesting break out. And that's a whole other story that we'll get into a little bit later in this report. But we can see what is happening. And even Germany, they're having problems there too. And, German car sales are dropping, and people do not have the money to go out and purchase these cars. So what they're doing is they're sharing cars now. Now, in a prosperous society where things are increasing, people are making more money, you don't go around sharing cars. But what they've noticed is that new vehicle registration fell below 3 million last year, and it's a continuing the decline that's been happening over the last 2 decades. And the young buyers are completely dying off, and they're not looking to buy cars at this time. What they do is they rent a car, they take it from one destination to another, and they just leave it at the destination that they arrive at. And this is how they're getting by. And we can see this is taking the toll on every single nation. Every single nation is having their own individual problems. Some are a little bit worse off than others, but they're all approaching the same exact problem. Too much debt. People are not making enough income. They have to go into their savings. They have to get payday loans just to make ends meet. And we're seeing this across Europe, and we are seeing this in the United States. It's the same thing that's happening all over the place. Now, we're seeing, and in the past couple of weeks now, we have seen economic indicators that are just terrible. And of course, the stock market is just continually going up. Yes, it had its down spots, but it's going up, even with all this economic bad news coming out. And right now, and I've talked about this a lot, mortgage applications have plunged further now. They are at 19-year lows. And I started discussing this back in August when the president was out there letting everyone know that real estate market is rebounding. We're in a recovery. And during those reports, I said actually the opposite, that real estate is not rebounding, that we are in a period of where real estate is completely falling apart. And I brought up that Wells Fargo, Citibank, Bank of America, they were all laying off their mortgage departments because they realized what was happening. They realized that this housing bubble cannot be sustained because most of the housing was purchased in cash by hedge funds and investors, and they received this money, this free money from the Fed, and they're trying to get out of the housing market, and they're trying to hand this off to everyday Americans. And guess what? The everyday American, they have nothing left to give. They can't buy homes because we have to think about what has happened since 2008. The housing market crashed. The Fed had to go and purchase all the foreclosures from the banks to relieve them of the toxic real estate, to clear up their books, and this is why there's $4 trillion worth of toxic assets on the Fed's books right now. We saw mortgage companies lay off people. We saw mortgage applications plunge, and we are seeing the same thing happen, and it's continually happening because the housing market is collapsing. And right now, the past 5 weeks have seen mortgage applications crumble at a further 16%. This is the biggest drop in 14 months. Home purchase applications hovers close to its lowest level since 1995. So again, things are not looking good for the housing because this was unrealistic. It was pumped up by the Fed. And how do we know that this was pumped up? Well, every time the Fed is out there telling you that the housing market is getting better, that we're seeing improvements, especially if a government official is out there telling you that we're in a rebound, things look great. If the economy is in a true recovery, they don't have to campaign to convince us that we're in a recovery. You know why? Because you feel it. There are jobs of plenty out there. You can look on any type of website. You can go to the newspaper if you still read the newspaper, and you'll see help wanted with fantastic jobs, just like we saw in the past. And people would be getting jobs left and right. People would buy then homes because they have now the money to purchase those homes. People would go into stores and spend their disposable income. And you would see retail sales expanding, opening new stores. You would see the automobile manufacturers producing more cars because they can't keep the cars on the lots. But we are seeing the total opposite of what is going on right now. And in the housing market, housing starts dropped a stunning 16%. And again, this is not going well for housing. Housing is going to rapidly decline. The bubble will be popped, and we're going to see housing come to a screeching halt, and everyone's out there who doesn't understand what's going on, who's believing the government and the Fed, are going to scratch their heads going, what happened? I thought the housing market was going well. This is why I purchased the house, to flip. And now you're telling me that the housing market, the prices are coming down, and there's no one here to purchase it? It's the same thing that happened prior to 2008. They were building and building this up, telling everyone to go out and buy houses. People were flipping, they were speculators, and guess what? All of a sudden, everyone was left with these houses while the housing market completely came crumbling down. And we are seeing the same exact thing happen right now. Now, we understand that the government is out there letting us know that the job market is a lot better now by their 6.6% unemployment, and they're trying to convince us that everything is fantastic. But if we delve a little bit deeper in what's going on here, and we take a look, January's labor report confirmed that there were about 100 million Americans not working. In fact, more than 100 million Americans have not been working in Obama's workers' paradise for all of 2012 and 2013. And the CBO is now reporting that Obamacare will force another 2.5 million workers out of the workforce by penalizing work through the withdrawal of health benefits as income rises. And we understand this, that Obamacare is limiting the amount of people that will be able to work, because employers are looking and saying, listen, we don't want to pay for this health insurance, so we're limiting the amount of hours, we're dropping the people that we don't need, and this is why Obama had to come in and rewrite the Affordable Care Act, which is Obamacare, and say, no, you have to prove to the IRS of why you're laying off these people before you lay off these people, because they started to realize that all of these businesses around the country were starting to lay off people, and they needed to put a stop to this because they realized this would be millions and millions of people, and of course that's what it is. And as all this, as we see the 100 million people not working, we see that 2.5 million people are going to leave the workforce because of Obamacare. What this means is that 1.4 trillion will not be heading to the federal government as tax revenue in the next 10 years. So they are losing their tax revenue base. This is why you see them pushing climate change right now, because they need a way to tax the people. And what they're going to do is they're going to implement a carbon tax, and they are really pushing it hard right now. You have John Kerry, the president. They're all pushing it very, very hard because they need, and they understand, they need to get the revenue into the government to pay for everything that's going on, because the amount that they're borrowing, and now they have a blank check because there is no debt ceiling, the amount that they're borrowing cannot be sustained with the revenue that's coming in right now. And they understand this. They can't pay for anything unless they borrow from the Fed. And you're going to see this debt increase substantially over the next couple of years, and it's going to skyrocket, and they know it. Now, we understand that the government is trying to remove all the people's rights, and right now, the Obama administration, what they're doing with the Federal Communications Commission, they are poised to place government monitors in newsrooms across the country. The FCC commissioner reveals a brand new Obama administration program that he fears could be used in pressuring media organizations into covering certain stories. Last May, the FCC proposed an initiative to thrust the federal government into newsrooms across the country. The Obama administration has developed a formula of what it believes the free press should cover, and is going to send government monitors into newsrooms across America to stand over the shoulders of the press as they make editorial decisions. This completely poses a problem with free speech and the freedom of the press. But we understand why they are doing this. They need to control the media, and they need to control the stories coming out of the media further than what they're doing right now. Right now, the government is feeding them news stories, and they do not want the press to go off on their own to cover different stories, and if it's not approved by the government, because things are getting out of control right now. Things are happening all around the world, as we can see, and they want complete control of what is going on. And I've always said this, they have control of the money printing. They have control of the press, and now they're taking it a step further. The next thing they want is control of the internet, because that is a section of the press that they do not have control of, because it's new media, alternative media, and they cannot control what they're saying out there like they can't control me. So they need to control this, and they're doing everything they possibly can to bring to control the internet. And this is why you see the president coming out with all these executive orders about cybersecurity, executive orders about companies sharing information, executive orders about the internet. And this is why CISPA is pending right now in the Senate. And this is why the president has created all these executive orders that support CISPA. And he's trying to figure out a way of bringing the control to the internet. And this is their entire plan, and this is why he came up with the framework of having the companies volunteer their information and to share their information, because this is going to bring about what's going to happen later on as they say, you know what, we really need to take control of the internet because cyber attacks are getting out of hand, and we have CISPA pending in the Senate, and we're going to pass CISPA, and we'll just take control of everything right now. Now, of course, the alternative media or new media, they're out there saying that climate change is completely false. All they're trying to do is create more taxes. They don't even have documents where the tax money is going to go. And of course, we know where all this money is going to go. But Kerry is out there, and he's saying that climate change is a threat to national security. So what they're doing right now, they're trying to scare the people that they're trying to use scare tactics to scare the people that climate change is terrible. It's something that has to be dealt with right now. They also use that climate change can now be considered another weapon of mass destruction. It's the same exact scare tactics that they're using with terrorists that they're trying to implement with climate change. And this is all for taxing the American people. They're going to put, most of the people have the smart meters on their homes. This is to monitor all your electricity in the house. And it's funny because the other day I received a letter or an email from my electricity provider, and they told me that if I'd like, they could handle which devices are on and which devices are off in my home to help me save electric. And of course, there's no way that they are going to do this for me, because I will decide which things I have on and which things I have off. But I couldn't even believe that I actually received something like that from the electrical company. And again, this is all for getting prepared to tax every single person. This is what they are striving for, because they realize they need to raise the revenue. You're going to see many, many more taxes. You're going to see many more taxes come down the line, because as we get closer and closer to the end game, this is what governments do. And this is why throughout Europe you're seeing all this, and you're going to see this in every single country that's having a debt problem, a high unemployment problem, and nearing collapse. And this is pretty much all private Western central bank countries at this point. Now, on a brighter note, Arizona passed the anti-NDAA bill to nullify indefinite detention, which is good news. And this is Arizona State Senate Committee passed the Restoring Constitutional Governance Act, SB 1291, giving initial approval to a bill that nullifies indefinite detention. And again, the National Defense Authorization Act allows the government to say that you are a terrorist. Once they designate you as a terrorist, they can put you in jail up to 1 year without due process. You will not get an attorney. You will not get anything. You'll just be thrown into prison. And we can understand why they're doing this, because just like, let's use other countries, for example, as the example. When you see people in the country rise up against the government saying, you know what, we don't want this government in there, the government classifies all these people as terrorists. And the U.S. government is already prepared to do that. Once things go south and people say, you know what, we don't want that government in there, they will say these people are terrorists under the NDAA. These people will be picked up and thrown into prison. They will, get DHS, their anti-terrorist law enforcement or military enforcement, to come and pick up these people. And this is why they've been buying the billions rounds of bullets. This is why they purchased the 2,700 tanks. This is why they're giving tanks and weapons to local law enforcement. This is why they've been giving them grants. This is why local enforcement has to be in compliance with DHS. This is why DHS has been setting up bases in every single city around the country at this time, because they are getting prepared for what is coming. Now, a couple reports ago, I reported on the DHS's license plate scanner system that can track the people. And right now, Judge Napolitano, he is out there saying that this is completely unconstitutional. And the reason why he says this is that the Constitution establishes a bar over which the government must go before it before it can commence any investigation about anybody. Law enforcement is not allowed to use its powers for no reason, or on a hunch, or on a whim. It has to have a reason that they can articulate as to who did what wrong before they can start investigating. This is what the judge says. Judge Napolitano said that the proposal program would destroy our freedom, and the erosion of rights would create a world where children will never know what privacy was. And this is absolutely true, because this is what they're trying to do. They don't care about the Constitution. And when I say they, I'm talking about the government officials, the central bankers, the globalists, the elite, whatever you like to call them. They do not care about the Constitution. They rather have the Constitution completely removed. And we heard this from a Harvard law professor saying that the Constitution is out of date. We've heard Bloomberg say we need to get rid of the Constitution. Of course, Bloomberg is out there with the Mayors Against Guns trying to get rid of the Second Amendment. And we can see what is happening. They are trying to remove the Constitution because this is really stopping them from doing what they really want to do. Again, DHS has been completely set up, and it's separate and apart from the military to deal with terrorists. Now, of course, when we hear that, we think, oh, it has to be the Muslims, it has to be the Al-Qaeda terrorists. No, they're here to deal with the domestic terrorist, you, the American people. This is why they have the Real ID license system, and they would need all the states to be in compliance. This is why they set up the 100-mile constitutional free zone, which there is no such thing, but of course, if they make enough people believe it, they will believe it. This is why they have the license plate tracking. This is why they put in place the DNA, the biometric to scan your iris, to scan your fingerprints. They put all this into place because they need to track every single person and to keep their lists up to date. And this is why the blimps are going up in the air. This is why they have cameras that can focus in so close to you they can see your face, which will then be scanned in. Then it will be sent to the federal database where it will be correlated to all the other information. And right now, what DHS wants to do is, with every single license that you have, they want an RFID chip inside the license. And this will enable them to track you. And this is the first step of introducing the RFID chip. And we've all heard it, that eventually what they want to do is put the RFID chip inside a human being. But again, they do this in steps. They do it incrementally. They don't come out and say, listen, everyone needs to get an RFID chip. That's not how it works. What they do, they slowly introduce it. Now, all licenses will need to have the RFID chip. And right now, the Alabama Department of Public Safety are issuing new chip drivers, licenses, and IDs under the STAR ID initiative that promises to improve the integrity and security of state-issued driver licenses. The STAR ID is the Alabama's legislators' response to the Real ID Act of 2005, which keeps the state in compliance with the federal mandates. And again, we understand this. DHS wants every single state to be in compliance with their Real ID. And the Real ID Act is tasked with protecting Americans from terrorism by empowering the Department of Homeland Security and other federal agencies to monitor and profile residents. Notice how they said that, to monitor and profile residents to ensure their authenticity. Now let's back up here for a second. The Real ID Act is tasked with protecting Americans from terrorism. They're talking about people inside the country who go against the government. Those are the terrorists. And it empowers the DHS to profile each resident to see if they are a terrorist. This is what they've been planning. And right now, the states that are in compliance right now with the RFID chip are as follows: Alabama, California, District of Columbia, Florida, Hawaii, Illinois, Kansas, Maryland, Nevada, New Mexico, North Carolina, Oregon, Rhode Island, Texas, Virginia, Wisconsin. This is what they are doing. And I know in my other reports I've discussed this many, many times, but here in black and white, what they are saying is they are going to track every single one of you. And, of course, me. The U.S. Department of State Consulated database has more than 90 million people's photographs database with the continuous use of Department of Facial Recognition software. DHS Automated Biometric Identification System tracks an estimated 250,000 biometric communications a day, over 126 million fingerprints, photographs, biographical information are filed for the U.S. government to use at their discretion. The National ID Card by Oracle would establish a standard and secure national identifier. We could ensure that any system that chose to use it could effectively share information with other systems that use it. So this is what they are doing. They are collecting everyone's information because they will keep you on different lists and they will track you through your license, and eventually they will track you through the by implanting the RFID chip into your arm. This is their entire plan because they realize when this collapse happens, they need to know what everyone is doing. And this is why you saw the blimps go up over Washington with these cameras that can focus in on people and they can see miles and miles away. Plus, these blimps can also be fitted with armament. Arms to fire down on the people. So you can see how they are preparing for this collapse. Okay, now, out in the Ukraine, it's just a mess out there. We have the rioters, the protesters, backed by the U.S. government, by Israel, by Saudi Arabia, by France, by pretty much all the private Western central banks. They're out there pushing their agenda and pushing the rioters and the protesters. And right now, the United States is saying, listen, if this goes any further and the Ukraine government takes any type of action, we're going to implement new sanctions against the Ukrainian government. And this is what they're saying. Of course, they're calling for peace, which I find it very interesting because they are pushing the protesters. They're the ones who started it. Once the Ukraine decided not to go with the EU and to join NATO, they decided to start all of this up. And right now, of course, the President Obama, they has to look across, in the world and to the people of the United States, warns the Ukraine against crossing the line. Obama always has this line that people are going to cross. And Obama says there will be consequences if people step over the line. Obama says U.S. condemns Ukraine violence in strongest terms. Of course, the violence is being created by the U.S. government, but Obama, military shouldn't act where civilians can resolve issues. Again, when the United States is controlling the riots and wants to push out the government of the Ukraine, they don't want the government involved. Flip it around, when the United States controls the government, they use everything they possibly can to push the people who are protesting down. For instance, in Yemen, there's a puppet government controlled by the United States, and the people who are rising up, they use drone attacks on these people. And of course, they call them Al-Qaeda and they call them terrorists. In Lebanon, in Libya, the people are rising up. They call them Al-Qaeda and terrorists. And guess what they use? They use drones against them. Same thing in Pakistan. Same thing in Thailand. Wherever the United States has the puppet government in place, the rioters have to be pushed down. The places where the U.S. government does not have a puppet government and they want that government out, they do not want the government to, harm the civilians who are rioting and protesting. The same thing's happening in Venezuela. So we can see they talk on both sides of their mouth depending on what position they have. And just as I was setting up this report, the Ukraine president and the opposition leader established a temporary truce right now because it was getting out of hand, and the Ukraine government was going to take the next step where they were going to send out the military and declare martial law. And this right now has stopped everything, and they are in a temporary truce. But again, as always, you'll see this thing spin up again because the agenda of the central bankers are exactly the same. Push the government out, put a puppet government in there, put everything onto the US dollar or the EU, and have Ukraine join NATO because it is in a strategic location which borders along the Black Sea. It borders along the Russian state, so it is a perfect location. Now, out in Japan is preparing for war with China. Japan is now considering future weapon transfers to other Asian countries as it builds alliances for potential war with China. Japanese officials met with representatives from 10 member states of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations to expand technological and defense cooperation between the countries. And right now, what they're saying, and what Japan is saying, if China started a war with Japan, it would be much larger than World War II. And we know this, it will be World War III, which will eventually go nuclear. And the United States is already involved in the territory dispute, and a group of defense analysts warned lawmakers in December that the U.S. Should also plan for war with China because they understand once this goes hot, and war breaks out either with Japan or war breaks out with Syria, Russia and China will step in. If war breaks out in Ukraine, we know Russia will step in, and again, this will spread, and we will see World War III. And we can see how this is all being set up and all being prepared. Now, something is going to happen in Egypt, because right now, and we understand why, Egypt is cozying up to Russia. They just made a deal to receive arms. They're letting the Russian ship dock in the Alexandria port. They're receiving aid from Russia. And right now, Al-Qaeda, the terrorists, which are backed by the U.S. government, they are telling and they're warning foreigners right now against visiting Egypt. In a statement on February 18th, Al-Qaeda said it will continue to target Egypt's economy. Al-Qaeda set a date of February 20th, saying that all foreigners should leave Egypt. We recommend tourists to get out safely before that date and that deadline, because something is about to happen, because they can't have Egypt in alignment with Russia, and the central bankers, the United States government, is now moving in, and they're going to start something in Egypt. And we'll probably see this happen in the next couple of days or next couple of weeks, where something all of a sudden will flare up, just like we see in the Ukraine, the other Middle Eastern countries, in Africa, in Venezuela, in Thailand, in Tunisia. We're seeing it happen all over the place because they need to maintain the dollar. They need to make other countries accept the dollar and use it as the reserve currency, and this is going to spread even further to other countries. Now, we understand that President Obama, and I reported this on yesterday, that he is very worried about cyber attacks, and we need cyber warriors because people can hurt our economy through cyber attacks, and they're trying to convince everyone. And right now, the framework that he set up for cybersecurity, many people, and this is through Executive Order 13636, where companies will volunteer their information, and right now they're seeing that companies are really not volunteering any information, that of course they don't have to, so they're not going to, and there are skeptics out there saying that this is not really going to do anything. They need something where they can force the companies to do this, and you'll probably see the White House try to pass CISPA and to get that pass because they want control of the internet, and we might even see we might even see a huge cyber attack hit. We've seen many. We've seen the retail cyber attacks. We've seen the Syrian Electronic Army. We've seen Iran cyber attack, and we'll probably see this increase and hit more financial institutions, more retail stores and companies. And finally the president will come out and say, due to the fact that all this is happening and all these cyber attacks are happening, we need some type of law where we can share the information to protect the entire economy, and this is when they will pass CISPA. Now, back in December, I reported on the New York Stock Exchange. They were proposing to implement a kill switch because if the stock exchange is attacked, they would and the market starts coming down. They want a point where they can just shut it all down, and we can see why they want this, because eventually, because of Janet Napolitano and other people, it's not if but when, and we know a major cyber attack is coming, and we know they're going to hit the financial markets. We understand they're going to hit the power grid, and right now the New York Stock Exchange has implemented a kill switch. Well, guess what? NASDAQ now is going to implement their kill switch by March 1st. And this is going to protect, the traders just in case something happens. Well, the only thing I can see happening is that the entire market start crumbling and falling, and they need a way to stop it very quickly, and they need some type of switch they can throw to do this. And right now, the New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ is going to have it by March 1st, and BATS, the global market, already has one in place. So they're covering all bases right now because they are preparing for what is coming. And I've said this in the past, and this is my opinion. If you still have money in the banks, I would start taking it out and keeping it safe someplace else. I would start purchasing gold and silver, and I would start purchasing supplies, food, water. Now, if you don't have that much money, I would focus my attention on food, water, medical supplies, and things like that. And I said this back in August when we thought we were going to war with Syria, and the American people weren't, for this. And here we are again doing the same exact thing, and we all knew that this was going to happen again because of what the goal has always been the same. Nothing has changed. We understand that the dollar is collapsing. We understand that the yuan is spreading across the globe. We understand that the yuan is a direct threat to the U.S. dollar and wants to be the next reserve currency of the world. And the central bank they will not let this happen. And we see what's happening. But during this collapse, you want to make sure that you are prepared, and especially if the lights go out, that you have batteries, that you have supplies, that you have water, and you are prepared for this. And if you have extra money, I would start buying gold and silver because you're going to see the precious metals shoot up. And again, you need some type of weapon to protect yourself for what is coming. And these are the things that I would do. I even have, and you can get them cheap in Home Depot or Lowe's or any store that you have. I buy these 5-gallon jugs and I fill them up with water, and I keep them because if the water system stops, you still want to have water in your home. And there are many things you can do. I continually stock up with food and fresh water to drink, medical supplies, and I've mentioned this many times that if you have some type of illness, diabetes, heart problem, any high blood pressure, I would just stock up on extra medication because, again, when something goes down here and things get very expensive, you just want to make sure that you have supplies in your home so you don't have to run out like every other person trying to get as much as they possibly can before the prices go up again. And this is something that we should all be doing because we know something is on its way. Now, there is another warning out there, and they're always keeping this in front of our face. U.S. warns of a shoe bomb threat to overseas flights. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security warned airlines Wednesday that flights from overseas traveling into the United States could carry passengers who are hiding explosives in their shoes. Very recent intelligence found credible threats indicating that passenger jets could be targeted by airline customers who attempt to hide bombs in their shoes. They don't understand why this is happening. They can't really tell you who it's from. It's almost like the toothpaste bomb. They're trying to keep the terror threat in front of you because they are planning for the next false flag event. And this is why you see all this coming out right now. Now, the White House, okay, we understand, before I get into that, let me just say, we understand that the White House, they need to get into Syria. They understand, and there's a time frame. We understand the mid-year elections are coming up in 2014. We understand that Russia has made a deal with Syria where they're going to help Syria drill for oil, implement natural gas infrastructure, and again, the central bankers cannot have this. And we see this, and we also understand that the rebels who are fighting against Assad, these are the rebels that are paid by the United States, Saudi Arabia, France, Israel, they're losing the battle, and Assad is winning at this time. And they've tried many different tactics. They tried the Geneva II to oust Assad, didn't work. They tried the UN war crimes against Assad, it didn't work. They tried to go down the humanitarian route, and of course Russia looked at the document that they were proposing, the resolution, and they said, whoa, wait a minute. You said here that we need to go into Syria because Assad has committed war crimes and we need to go in there for humanitarian reasons. And they said, whoa, wait a minute. You're already condemning Assad without any proof, and if we sign this document that shows that he has committed war crimes and we're not going to do this, we can help you create a different document. And of course this just completely fell apart. And again, we can see many other things happening before a false flag event. And right now the White House is stressing reluctance on a Syrian force option. The White House has indicated that President Obama is hesitant to employ force in Syria. Now, as I've always said, it is always the opposite of what they're saying. So right now he's telling the American people in the world, no, we're not going to use force to go in there. Well, unless something happens, then we will use force. And again, we can see many different things go on before the false flag. We might see an assassination attempt. We might see a bombing of the government building. We might see many different things happen prior to the last step they need to take, and which would be a false flag event. Now, U.S. intelligence and Arab allies met secretly in Washington. Intelligence agents from the United States and its Arab allies in the Middle East are making secret arrangements to increase support for Syrian militants to topple the Syrian government. So they're already working out plans in secret. The U.S. National Security Advisor, Susan Rice, met with Prince Mohammed during the meeting to discuss support strategy for the militants. The gathering was also attended by intelligence chiefs from Turkey, Qatar, Jordan, and other regional allies of Washington. And we already know that President Obama has already given aid to Jordan. We already know that weapons are being set up in Jordan. We already know that the CENTCOM base, which is an underground base, is the command center for the strike into Syria. It's the same thing they did back in August of 2013, and they're repeating the same exact thing. The Obama administration is reportedly revisiting plans for Syria, including renewed military options, but they want to see what other options they have out there first. And like I said, they might try something big, like an assassination plot or something like that. And if that doesn't go forward, then we will see some type of false flag event hit here in the United States. Now, how do we know this is going to happen? I said this back in December, probably November, that they've been planning this. We saw that they didn't extend the unemployment because they don't care. They will now not count those unemployed people who have fallen off from the unemployment extension. That was an indicator. And now the Fed is out there where he's saying that they're going to continue to taper because they see the economy is getting better and they expect the economy to grow as much as 3% this year. Of course, it's going to grow 3% when we see manufacturing down, when we see retail down, when we see millions of people unemployed, we see housing collapsing. All we're seeing is bad economic information. But they're saying that the economy is going to grow by 3% this year. And they also went on to say that the only thing that would stop them from tapering is if something big should happen. Well, I guess all the bad economic data is not big enough. So when they say something big happening, it would take a lot, they said, to knock tapering plan off course. To you and me, what would be a lot? The destruction of the economy by another country? Yeah, that would enable them to print more money. And the reason why they're saying this is because the plans have already been set up. They have already planned to do something. And this is why we have seen just in the past couple days that cyber attacks equal economic problems and economic disaster to hurt the economy of the United States. This is why they've been building the propaganda. This is why we've been seeing the cyber attacks. This is why they've been using the propaganda that Syria is harboring terrorists. This is why we are seeing that Syria has hidden biological and chemical weapons. This is why we see the Syrian Electronic Army attacking all these different websites and all these different companies and government agencies. This is why they have Iran hitting the government websites. They are building this up because they understand that they need to take this to the next level. They understand if they can't get into Syria any other way, either by assassinating them or doing something else, they will resort to a false flag event. They also understand that the economy is falling apart right in front of their eyes, and they understand that they cannot keep this system going. The only way to keep it going is to move into Syria and Iran. The United States Army, the military is spread so thin right now that it's just keeping everything in check, and they realize this. And this is why it would take something big to knock tapering off course, to allow them to print money again. And the only thing that will allow them to do this, because they just received all this bad economic information, which is not bad enough, they need something really, really big. And the only thing that I can think of right now that's so big is a cyber attack, a false flag event on the United States to knock the economy off of its recovery, let's say. So with that, everyone, please be prepared. Be well. Be safe. Thank you very much.